She slammed her Jeep straight through my front wall like she was in a demolition derby. I ran out barefoot, dust and bricks flying everywhere. The engine was still running, her music blasting, and she just sat there texting like nothing happened. I shouted, "Are you out of your mind?" She rolled her eyes and said, "Relax, my mom's on the HOA board. She'll handle it." That's when I knew, this wasn't just an accident. It was the beginning of something much uglier. 10 minutes later, Karen herself stormed out of her house in her pink robe, phone in hand, yelling, "You're going to pay for damaging my daughter's Jeep." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My wall was gone, my front garden crushed, and she was accusing me. She snapped pictures of my property like some kind of detective and said, "You'll be hearing from our lawyer." I said, "Your lawyer? Lady, your daughter just crashed into my house." She smirked, "Not for long. We'll prove this was your fault." The cops showed up soon after. Guess who called them? Karen. She pointed at me and said, "That's the man who threatened my daughter." The officer turned to me, confused. I tried to explain, but Karen kept interrupting, crying fake tears. Her daughter sat in the car pretending to be hurt, holding her neck like she'd just survived an explosion. I said calmly, "Officer, I have a camera on that wall. Everything's recorded." Karen froze for a second, then quickly said, "Oh, he's lying. He's been spying on our homes with illegal cameras." That's when the officer's tone changed. He looked at me seriously and said, "Sir, do you have proof of this footage?" I smiled faintly and said, "You bet I do. And it's uploading to the cloud right now." Karen's face went pale. She stammered, You can't use that without my consent." I leaned forward just enough for her to hear me clearly and said, "Karen, your daughter drove through my wall. I don't need your consent for evidence." Her daughter suddenly got out of the Jeep and screamed, "You'll regret this. My mom knows the city council." Karen quickly grabbed her arm, whispering something in panic. That's when I realized, this wasn't just arrogance. They were hiding something. Karen wasn't protecting her daughter, she was protecting herself. The next morning, I woke up to find a bright orange paper taped to my door. Notice of violation, unauthorized structure damage to HOA property. My jaw dropped. HOA property. It was my wall, on my land. Karen had actually filed a report claiming my damaged wall was an unsafe obstruction to the neighborhood. I tore the paper off and laughed bitterly, but deep down, I knew this was her move to twist the narrative before I could fight back. By noon, Karen and her daughter were standing outside with two men in suits. One of them said he was from the HOA legal committee. The other one kept snapping photos of the wreck. Karen crossed her arms and said loud enough for my neighbors to hear, "We'll have to sue him for endangering my daughter's life. She could have been killed because of that unpermitted wall." My neighbor, Mrs. Lane, gasped. I saw phones recording. She wanted the crowd, she wanted the drama. I stepped forward and said calmly, "You really think this is going to work?" Karen smirked, "It already is. The board has an emergency meeting tonight, and I'll make sure you're fined for negligence." Her daughter laughed and added, "Guess who's losing their house soon?" They both walked away like they'd already won. But they didn't know one thing, I wasn't just some random homeowner. I'd spent 10 years as a real estate fraud investigator before I moved here to retire quietly. And the thing about fraud, you can smell it from a mile away. I knew those papers she waved weren't official. The logo was off, the signatures copied. So I started digging. That night, I pulled the footage from my security system. The video clearly showed her daughter speeding down the street, swerving, and crashing through my wall while laughing. And right after that, Karen's white SUV appeared in frame. She got out, looked straight at the camera, and moved the evidence. She took the car's front plate off and threw it in her trunk. My hands trembled as I watched. I wasn't angry anymore, I was focused. I printed stills of the footage, backed up everything to multiple drives, and placed one in my safe. Then I wrote an email to the local police department with the subject line, "Evidence of intentional property damage and HOA fraud." I didn't hit send yet. I wanted to see what Karen would try next. And sure enough, at 8 p.m., there was a knock on my door, 3 firm bangs. When I opened it, 2 officers stood there, and behind them, Karen, smiling like a queen about to deliver her victory speech. Karen stepped forward before the officers could even speak. "That's him," she said confidently. "He threatened my daughter and tried to destroy evidence. Her voice was calm but dripping with fake concern. One of the officers looked at me and said, "Sir, we received a complaint. We need to ask you a few questions." I could feel every neighbor's eyes watching from behind their blinds. Karen had turned this into a show. I kept my voice steady. "Officers, you're welcome to ask anything you want. But before that, you might want to see this." I took out my phone and played the clip of her daughter crashing through my wall. The sound of the engine, the laughter, the impact, it all filled the quiet night air. Karen's face drained of color. This is fake," she snapped. "He edited this to make us look guilty." The older officer squinted at the screen and said, "Ma'am, this footage is timestamped and matches your daughter's vehicle registration. We'll need to take a copy." Karen tried to talk over him, but the officer raised a hand. "Ma'am, please step back." She froze, her smile trembling for the first time. I could almost see the panic creeping in behind her perfect act. Then came the twist. Her daughter suddenly burst into tears. "Mom, stop lying," she cried. "He's right." Karen spun around in shock. "What did you just say?" The girl sobbed, "I hit the wall. I was texting. You told me to say it was his fault so we wouldn't lose the insurance money." The street went silent. Even the officer seemed stunned. Karen grabbed her daughter's arm and hissed, "Shut your mouth." The younger cop stepped forward instantly. "Ma'am, you can't talk to her like that in front of us." I stood still, trying to process what I just heard. Insurance money. So that was her game all along. She'd planned to fake the claim and use her WA position to pressure me into silence. Karen's voice cracked as she said, "You have no idea who I am." I looked straight at her and replied, "I do. You're the woman who's about to lose everything because you messed with the wrong homeowner." The officers separated us and began taking statements. But just when I thought it was over, Karen smirked again, that same twisted confidence returning. "You really think this ends here?" she whispered. "You don't know how deep this goes." And as the police car took her daughter away for questioning, Karen made a phone call, to someone she called, Judge Marshall. Karen stepped a few feet away, her voice low but sharp as she spoke on the phone. "Marshall, it's me. I need this handled tonight." "Yes, the same guy, he's trying to frame us. You know what to do." I couldn't hear the reply, but the way her expression softened told me she still thought she had control. She turned back toward me. That smug smirk back in place. "Enjoy your little victory," she said. "By tomorrow morning, you'll be facing charges for harassment and illegal surveillance." I didn't flinch. "Then I guess we'll both be in court," I said calmly. What she didn't know was that the name Judge Marshall wasn't new to me. Years ago, during my time investigating real estate corruption, that name had popped up multiple times, connected to forged property deeds and illegal WA kickbacks. I went back inside, heart pounding, and opened my old encrypted drive. The one labeled, Dormant Case 17B, WA Nexus. And there it was, the exact same name, Marshall, Judith, County Judge, Eastwood Circuit. My blood ran cold. I realized Karen wasn't just a nosy neighbor on a power trip. She was part of a network, people who used WA positions and fake claims to steal property and insurance payouts. Her daughter's crash wasn't an accident. It was bait. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every car sound outside made me check the window. Around 2 a.m., a black sedan stopped near my driveway. A man in a dark coat stepped out, looked around, and then snapped photos of my damaged wall before leaving. No lights, no plates. I took pictures from my upstairs window and sent them straight to my private investigator friend, Logan, a retired cop I trusted more than anyone. "Logan," I texted, "something big's moving. Need eyes tomorrow." He replied within minutes, "Already on it. Keep your doors locked." The next morning, I woke up to chaos again. My mailbox was filled with letters, legal notices, fake summons, WA warnings, all signed by Judge Marshall. The same judge from my old file. They were trying to bury me under paper and panic. But instead, they just gave me proof. I packed the files, my footage, and all my old reports into a binder. I wasn't going to wait for them to crush me quietly. I was going to take it to the courthouse myself. As I locked my front door, I saw Karen standing across the street, arms folded, smiling like she was already celebrating my downfall. I smiled back and said softly, "You have no idea who you're really fighting." I reached the courthouse just before noon, clutching the binder like a weapon. The clerk at the front desk recognized Judge Marshall's name immediately. "She's in hearing room 3, the clerk whispered. "You sure you want to walk in there without a lawyer?" I just nodded. "I'm not here to argue," I said. "I'm here to expose." When I entered, Karen was already there, sitting smugly beside her daughter and a slick-looking attorney. Judge Marshall sat high on the bench, flipping through a file with the same cold detachment I remembered from those old reports. "Mr. Carter," she said without looking up, "you've been accused of defamation, harassment, and illegal surveillance. How do you plead?" Karen turned her head toward me, whispering loud enough for everyone to hear, "Better think before you lie again." I didn't say a word. I walked to the evidence table and placed my binder down. "Before I respond, Your Honor," I said evenly, "I think you should see something." I handed the officer of the court a flash drive. "This contains security footage, voice recordings, and digital timestamps from my property camera. It also includes a scanned list of HOA financial transactions, all signed off by you, Judge Marshall." The room went silent. Marshall's eyes snapped up. "Excuse me," she said sharply. I continued, "5 years ago, I investigated a ring of fraudulent HOA committees funneling insurance money through fake property damage claims. Your name appeared 3 times. I dropped the case when the main suspect disappeared. Now that same signature has reappeared on my violation notice." Karen's attorney shifted nervously. The judge tried to keep her composure. "That's a serious accusation," she said coldly. "Do you have any proof those documents are authentic?" I clicked a small remote in my hand, and the courtroom monitor lit up. The footage played. Karen's daughter crashing the Jeep, Karen arriving minutes later to remove the plate, then Karen's voice, clear as day, saying, "We'll file the claim tomorrow." "He won't know what hit him." Gasps filled the room. Karen jumped to her feet. "That's illegal. You can't record on my own property." I cut her off. "I can, and I did." The bailiff moved closer to the judge's bench. Judge Marshall's face had gone pale. Her hand trembled slightly as she tried to turn off the monitor. But then another voice came from the back, deep, calm, and familiar. "Don't bother, Judith," the man said. Everyone turned. It was Logan, my retired cop friend, standing there in uniform with 2 county officers. He held up a signed warrant. "We already verified the signatures and bank transfers. You're both under investigation for HOA fraud, property conspiracy, and obstruction of justice." Karen's mouth fell open. "You can't do this. I know people," she shouted. Logan smirked. "Yeah, and now we know them too." As the officers cuffed her and her daughter burst into tears, I just stood still, letting the noise fade. Karen turned to me one last time and said through gritted teeth, "You think you won? This isn't over." I looked at her calmly. "You're right," I said quietly. "It's just beginning, but this time, the truth's the one driving." She was led away, screaming, as the judge's gavel fell one last time, not to silence me, but to seal her fate. And when I stepped outside into the sunlight, I finally took a deep breath. My wall could be rebuilt. My peace couldn't be stolen again. Viral line. She tried to frame me for her own crime, but I built my case stronger than my wall.